It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague who didn't need some cupcakes to stay in the Waxing Lyrical pod is Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I tried leveraging the market to get a better deal, but ultimately the market wasn't there.
Well, the market just did what it's supposed to do and proved that they didn't want you as much as I did, obviously.
I did think about getting my dad, at Duncoman, to do Adrian Peterson style and start, tweeting about what a good fit I'd be for, the solid verbal and, gridiron around the league. But it didn't happen.
At the end of the day, Dutton, I allowed the market to set your price, much like Bill does for Dante Hightower. If you're not sure what we're talking about, it seems like the Jets tried to bribe Dante Hightower with cupcakes. The Patriots used a concept called victories to try and get him on board. You can guess which one worked. I followed a similar Bill approach of letting the market set your price. So you will be getting 5p in the post soon as you like.
And I'll be glad to get it.
Added to that pile, Dutton. This week, interview, got the brilliant Rob Staton. If you're from the Yorkshire area, you will know him from BBC Radio Sheffield. If you love the Seahawks, you'll know him from the Seahawks Draft Blog or the Field Goals. That's an absolutely fantastic name, by the way, Dutton.
I believe it's a sister site of Bleeding Green Nation, of course, John Bouchard. John
Bouchard fame. We will talk all things Seahawks, which will be nice because it means we won't talk all things Eagles. After that, me and Neil will go through some winners and losers of the free agency fortnight we've had so far. We'll see the usual suspects. One team we've already mentioned, and there'll be a winner, obviously, and then a loser will be one of the teams that we support. I bet you can't guess which one.
Yeah, won't be Sheffield Wednesday.
It won't be Sheffield Wednesday. Although I would like to ask Rob the pulse of a city that's one team's about to become, in the championship, and one team's trying to choke their way to stay in the championship. No comment. And on that note, Dalton, let's get Rob on the phone and see his thoughts on what the Seahawks have done in free agency and what he expects them to do going forward. And joining us now, Waxing Lyrical, brilliant Rob Staton. From the people of Yorkshire, you may know him from BBC Radio Sheffield. From Seahawks fans, you'll know him from the Seahawks Draft Blog, and obviously he's a contributor for Field Goals as well. Rob, how are we today?
Yeah, really good, guys. Enjoying the free agency period, and now looking forward to basically like a month and a half of nothing before we wait for the draft. So hopefully we're going to fill it with some articles on the blog, and that'll get us through the next few weeks.
So if we go straight onto the blog, Rob, in your most recent mock draft, you had the Seahawks taking Washington cornerback Kevin King, great name, in the first round. Given the reputation of the Legion of Boom, this is like a surprise to me and Neil. Is this just a case of best player available and not necessarily a need thing? Because when people talk about, and we'll probably come on to it later, when people talk about the Seahawks, everybody's like, are they going to fix the O-line?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that has happened over the years is the Seahawks have always had like this really good depth at cornerback. So a few years ago they had Walter Thurmond, who ended up at Philadelphia, and then there was Brandon Browner, and then Byron Maxwell came through, and then the well kind of ran a little dry. So they brought Kerry Williams, who was the ex-Eagle, and he flamed out. Deshaun Shedd ended up being the starter last year. But he tore his ACL and got a very serious knee injury in the playoff game against Atlanta, the final game of the season. So he's a free agent, and he's recovering and might not be available to play at all in 2017. So it's left quite a void at cornerback. And there are not these there are one or two younger guys that are on the roster that could fill that gap, but there isn't really anybody there. And because this draft is going to be defined really by the cornerbacks and the safeties, people are considering cornerback for the first time really since Pete Carroll came to the Seahawks. They're thinking about cornerback potentially being an option in the first round, and if not the first, the second or the third. Pete Carroll when he did his end-of-season press conference, essentially named 3 positions that they see as a priority, and that was cornerback, linebacker, and the offensive line. So, they are going to focus, I think, on a little bit on the offensive line. They've already brought in Luke Jokel. I think they are going to draft an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds. But cornerback is definitely an option as well.
So what is it about Kevin King that makes you think he'd be a good fit?
He's really, really good. He's really underrated. I know that people are kind of looking at the combine and thinking, you know what, people are just reacting to that and how he did there because he had a fantastic combine. But if you actually watch him on tape, he's really, really good. And then when he gets to the combine, it kind of all it's really done is shine a light on how good he is. And to put into context just how good he was athletically at the combine, he had. I think one of the all-time great 3 cones and short shuttle tests, which test short area quickness and agility. Considering he's 6'3" and 200 pounds, and he was testing better than Patrick Peterson in those tests there. It goes to show how he's capable of covering the slot and inside, and he did a bit of that for Washington. He can come inside and cover an Antonio Brown and make a fist of it. I'm not saying he's going to do an amazing job there, but he's going to make a fist of it in the same way that Richard Sherman did in Seattle when he covered Brown. He's got 4.43 speed, so he can get downfield and cover the outside and cover against the burner. He's really explosive, and he's basically just got a complete skill set. Now, there's every chance that he's going to move up, I think, over the next few weeks and maybe even go in the top 25 because he is really, really talented, really driven, great personality. I think people are going to look at him and say, there are similarities to Sherman. It's just that he's even more of an athlete. So someone, and there's a lot of ex-defensive coordinators who used to work in Seattle that are working elsewhere now, they'll probably look at this guy and think we've got to take a chance on him. I think Oakland at 24 could definitely be one of those teams. So he's going to move up very quickly. And I imagine the Seahawks will look at this guy and say he's freakish athlete. He's got some similarities to Sherman. He's got the length and the size that Seattle likes. And if he is there at 26, he will be an option. He'd be one of several, I would think.
And you mentioned Luke Jokel before. I think he's getting $8 million this season, despite Pete Carroll not being entirely certain where he'll play. I think the exact quote was, "We'll find a place for him." Turnstile operator would be one I could think of. The parallel that seems to me that I'm thinking of, the Seahawks signed Matt Flynn and then drafted Russell Wilson, and Wilson managed to pass Flynn on the depth chart. Is this the offensive line version that hopefully the Seahawks could draft someone who'll be better than Jokel and he can just be, a swing tackle or just provide depth? Or do you think the Seahawks genuinely think he could be the answer to their offensive line woes?
Well, I think that the Seahawks I know that the national media and sort of anybody who maybe only sees the team sparingly probably thinks that the offensive line's it's a lost cause, but there is a real belief within the coaching setup in Seattle that this is a young group that can develop. Just to very quickly sort of paint the picture for anybody who isn't aware, the left tackle was an undrafted rookie free agent. The left guard was a first-year starter. The center was a first-year starter at that position. The right guard was a rookie in the first round, and the right tackle was a second-year starter. There wasn't a younger, cheaper offensive line in the NFL. They all athletically are very, very good. They've been drafted for that reason, to draft and develop. And the Seahawks really believe that over the next 2 or 3 years, they can grow and become a really cohesive unit. They brought in Luke Jokel, and I think Carroll's talked about him potentially playing left tackle or left guard. He will come in and compete. Could they still draft a left tackle or a left guard to come in and essentially usurp Luke Jokel? It's possible. I think the thing with Matt Flynn was, because they were kind of targeting Russell Wilson in the 3rd round range, it's hard to sort of know whether you're going to be able to get that guy. And the mere fact they took him in the 3rd round suggests that they were looking at other areas first. And then, if he's there, we will take him. There wasn't a real conviction there that Wilson was going to be who he is. Otherwise, Seattle would have taken him in the 1st round. So they took Matt Flynn. They brought in Russell Wilson. There was a 3-way competition, and Wilson won the job. If they bring in 2 offensive linemen and one of them beats out Luke Jokel, that is entirely possible. But I think unless Garrett Bowles, the Utah left tackle, falls into the range at 26, which I don't think he's going to do, I think he's going to go in the top 10. If he falls to 26, then certainly they would consider him, because he's exactly the type of player they kind of love. But if he doesn't fall that far, I think they'll look at another position.
It's one of them, if I'm reading correctly and seeing what I've seen, it's one of them unfortunate things for the Seahawks this year. Again, obviously we're talking, get the O-line, you mentioned Garrett Bowles. Like, teams always need defensive linemen. There's always 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, and they're always drafting pretty high. This year's got a dearth of O-linemen, so whereas in years past you may be able to grab one of the guys who just slips down the board, because there's only 1 or 2, it's probably not going to be that case, and they're going to have to rely on picking later and getting Tom Cable to coach him up, I guess.
Exactly, and this is the problem that Seattle's had, because for 5 years now the Seahawks have picked to the back end of the first round. Not since 2012 have they had a pick in the top 15, and the good offensive linemen are going very, very early. And if you're picking, Seattle's picked 26 the last 2 years. Before that, it was kind of like 31 when they lost the Super Bowl. I think it was 31 the year before as well, because I think one of the teams was, I think the Saints or someone there had a pick taken away from them. But they've picked very late in the first round. And if you actually look, in the last 7 years since Pete Carroll came to Seattle, there's only been 5 Pro Bowl offensive linemen drafted after the first round. That's it. So, it's not like there's a whole host of offensive linemen you can go and find between rounds 2 and 7 who can come in and really dominate and have a great job for you. The good ones are going early. Your Jack Conklins, your Zach Martins, your Tyrone Smiths. They're all going in the first half of the draft. And unless you're kind of in that range, it's hard to get them. Now, if Seattle had been picking that early over the last few years, I'm sure that they would have taken some of these guys and the O-line would be much better. But because they're picking later on, the options aren't there. They're having to find guys with the potential to be great, even if they are extremely raw, and coach them up. And that is incredibly difficult to do. And I think this is what they're trying to do with this line, is sort of look into the future and say, we're going to step forward in 2017 and see progression, and then hopefully by 2018 you've actually got the makings of a really good group. The problem is that Seattle's in a championship window. They can't afford for the offensive line to be a cause for them not winning. Some would argue, and I think John Schneider, the GM, would make this point, the last thing this line needs is even more youth and inexperience. And if you take another first round pick and put it in there, that's another issue there, that it's another youngster on the line.
If we step a few yards back, I guess, from the offensive line, the Seahawks have just signed Eddie Lacy, or as me and Neil call him, unfortunately, Fat Eddie Lacy, to a decent-sized contract. And it's, for Dutton and me, we talk a lot about fantasy, especially during the season, and it's created what can only be described as a logjam at running back. Is there any thoughts that the team may look back in the draft, or even after splurging last year?
I'm not too sure. I think the running back situation in the draft is pretty overrated overall. Eddie Lacy, I think I'm going to call him Marshawn Lynch. By the way, he's going to come in. He's going to be Marshawn Lynch in Seattle. But they've wanted sort of that big physique. The one thing they didn't have last year without Lynch was somebody who could really sort of smash it up the middle. Get the tough yards and suck the safeties in, the linebackers in to get like a 7-8 man front, and it didn't create favourable matchups for Jimmy Graham at tight end. So I think that's what the plan is with Lacy, to get that sort of tone-setting physicality up the middle again. They've got good support with Rawls, who have still got the potential to be really good, and CJ Prosisa they love. Alex Collins is there. When you look at this draft, I think because Lacy signed the Seahawks, will move away from that. But overall, I think if you kind of look at Leonard Fournette's going to be insane. I think in the NFL, he's such a good player. Dalvin Cook has got some off-the-field issues that teams are going to be wary of, but still got a lot of potential there. Alvin Kamara at Tennessee, very highly rated. Christian McCaffrey, I think he's going to go very early as well. Someone's going to fall for him. I think after those few, it's going to be difficult to sort of find really good running backs. So I'm not sure it's a position the Seahawks in particular will look at.
It does seem that, as you say, the running back class might be slightly overrated, but some teams like Green Bay, where John Schneider came from, it seemed to be the mentality that they would draft a quarterback every year. It just seems that Seattle have basically adopted that and will draft a running back every year just to try and find, basically try and find one that like Marshawn Lynch, because obviously they didn't draft Marshawn Lynch. They had to get him from Buffalo. And it just seems that maybe they just have a slight problem maybe identifying the rookie quarterback. They always have to wait and see what the player has done at that position before taking a chance on them.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's a good thought there, because they have regularly drafted running backs. I mean, even when Marshawn Lynch was in his prime, they spent their first pick in the 2013 draft on Christian Michael. So they've been looking at running backs consistently for a long time, and it goes right back to the first year. You know, they traded for Marshawn Lynch, they brought in Lendale White, they traded for Leon Washington. You know, even when they had Lynch, they drafted Robert Turbin. They've drafted CJ Procise. They brought in Thomas Rawls. You know, Spencer Ware, who's at Kansas City right now, was drafted by the Seahawks. So, you know, they really have, you know, consistently looked for these guys. And I think it's really because of the heart and soul of this team is, you know, the defense, of course, but also the running game. And because Lynch was, I think it's evident now how important Lynch was to the Seahawks, that they will keep looking for that. I think the problem with this draft is that the Seahawks have also got a type. You know, all those names that I just mentioned there, they've all got a similar size. You know, they're all kind of like 5'11", 220 pounds, really explosive, if not really fast. And when you look in this draft class, there aren't many players who kind of fit into that mold. So last year, we had a look through the list of players who kind of fit Seattle's size prototype. And the two names that stuck out were Kenneth Dixon, who went to Baltimore, and CJ Procise. They took Procise. You know, we were able to identify Christian Michael as a possible target in the same way. There isn't really anybody like that. I mean, they might look at someone like Chris Carson, who's from Oklahoma State, a bit later on. Apart from that, you know, Brian Hill, maybe at Wyoming, could be a possible late round pick. But because the Seahawks don't have a 4th or 5th round pick at the minute, it's hard to sort of project when they're actually going to take one. I don't think they're going to do it in the first 3 rounds because they've signed Eddie Lacy. And then who is going to still be on the board in round 6 and 7?
Obviously, we've talked at the top about cornerbacks being brought in to enhance the Legion of Boom. I was just thinking, how high a priority would drafting a safety be, given the quality and play of the defensive backfield really nosedived after Earl Thomas was lost last year, and also that, you know, I think, you know, I'm hearing rumours that maybe Cam Chancellor isn't happy with his contract.
Well, Chancellor's out of contract in a year, and obviously he had the holdout in the 2015 season, so he's never received a pay increase since then. And I know a lot of Seahawks fans are kind of worried about this. You know, they want to see Cam paid, they want to see Cam happy, because he's the heart and soul of the team. You know, he's the leader in that locker room. So, you know, a lot of people want to see him re-sign. But I think you have to take a safety in this draft just because the talent is so good. I mean, you might be able to get one in the first round. You know, whether it's someone like Budda Baker, whether it's Obi Melifonwu, whether it's Justin Evans, you know, those types of guys. You know, it stretches into round 2. I think Josh Jones, the NC State safety, is a really interesting player because he's 220 pounds, runs a 4.4. You know, real physical, great attitude type of player. And then it stretches into round 3. You know, I'm a big fan of Shalom Luani, who is at Washington State. And I think he's going to go a lot earlier than people think. And you can just reel off names. I mean, I could give you like 10 or 15 different names of safeties. I mean, that every team really should be targeting, I think, to come out of this draft with at least one cornerback and at least one safety. It's that deep a class. And I do, I mean, the Seahawks have let their depth at safety walk. I mean, Stephen Terrell's without a team at the moment, and one or two others. Kelsey McRae, who they've had for a couple of years and was filling in for Cam Chancellor at the start of the season, is no longer contracted by the team. So they have nobody. They brought the Tampa Bay safety in for a visit recently to sort of see what his value is and maybe consider him. They were linked with J.J. Wilcox. They are looking at the veteran market, but it's almost certain they're going to draft a safety, I think, at one point. And I would expect that to be in the first 3 rounds as well.
Final question from us, Rob, and it's actually not on the NFL. I'm interested in your quote-unquote day job. Dutton's obviously a Wednesday fan, and as Al Pacino said in Godfather 3, when you think you're out, they pull you back in. And the team's played well this year, but now is struggling a little bit. Are they going to make the playoffs? And on the other side of the city, it looks like United are coming up. So I suppose the question is, as someone who's working for Radio Sheffield, what's it like? What's the buzz like in the city with the two teams playing well and pushing for honours, I guess?
Well, I'd like to say that there's a real buzz around the city, but there isn't really, because what you've essentially got, at least from my experience at the moment, is the Sheffield United fans are on cloud 9. You know, they've got a Blade in charge, top of the league. They're going to be up in the Championship. They've been desperate for this for 5 or 6 years now, and it looks as if it's finally going to happen for them. And then you've got Sheffield Wednesday, who this time last year were in the exact same position, a team that was competing for the playoffs, got to the playoff final, was a game away from the Premier League. And that's just raised the expectation. Now, I think the majority of Wednesday fans still understand how far Wednesday have come in the last 2 years. But doing a phone-in every night, we hear a lot of complaining and upset and, people calling for the manager to go and stuff like that because Wednesday are only sixth, if that makes any sense. But that's just the way that football is right now. I mean, it's what have you done for me lately? If you have 5 good years and in the 6th year you have a bit of a letdown year, people suddenly act as if it's a major issue. There's very little patience now. And, of course, Wednesday, I still think Wednesday will finish in the top 6. I think if there's any team that will drop out, it's probably going to be Reading. I mean, Reading play Sheffield Wednesday on Friday. And while Fulham are coming up from the outside and they're making a real push for this, Reading are the team that I would think they've got a chance of slipping out rather than Wednesday. I think Wednesday have got too much talent for that to happen. But if Wednesday get into the playoffs and it's with, let's just say, for example, Leeds, Fulham, and Huddersfield, there's not a great deal for Wednesday to fear there. They at the very least have as much chance as anybody else of actually winning the thing. And there's nobody like Hull City waiting for them in the final this year if they were to get there. So I think there's a great chance that Wednesday and United could both win promotion. But I'd love to say that they were both sort of feeling that way. But there's a little bit more, I would say, a slight trepidation from Wednesday fans or a little bit sort of mixed feelings with the way that the team have played this year. And it's not sort of creating that overall buzz, I would say.
So you're not the only one. You're not the only one. I knew it.
No. I mean, it's slightly frustrating that that you have games where you see that Wednesday have had so much possession, and then they don't score till the 93rd minute when the boy Rhodes scores. But ultimately, I remember drawing 0-0 at home with Dagenham and Redbridge. So as far as I'm concerned, rock bottom. Yeah, I've seen it. It was that. So only being 6th in the Championship, I can live with that. I'm fine with it. Just don't ever want to be drawing 0-0 at home against 2 teams. That was bad.
Yeah, it was, and you know what? It's not just that. I mean, Wednesday were getting, was it like 5-1 at Exeter a few years ago, and we're losing twice at home to Stevenage. Sorry, not losing, having Stevenage do the double over them and stuff like that. When they're in League One, and there was a chance that the club might go out of business at one point. And now they're fighting for promotion. I know that expectations rise very quickly in football, especially when you spend the kind of money that Wednesday have on their squad. And, obviously the ticket prices have gone up, so that will also play a part in this too. But, Wednesday are in a position now where every year that they're in the Championship, they're going to have a chance of winning promotion until they actually eventually do, cross the line and win promotion. And if you'd have said that to most Wednesday fans 3 or 4 years ago, that they'd be in this position in 2017, they would have snatched your hand off for it. But football's like no other sport. There is a constant pressure to win, to constantly be doing better than you did the year before that maybe doesn't exist in a lot of other sports. And it does create these kind of expectations and this unrest and this unsettled nature. And look, you wouldn't be surprised. Managers change every year now. It's almost like a manager's more like a loan signing than a commitment to someone running your team. So it's maybe not a surprise that the culture of football has created this situation.
I mean, it's not unsurprising. I mean, to be honest, I've on Twitter I was speaking to a fan of Yorkshire cricket who wants to know why Yorkshire haven't already won the county championship, despite the fact the season doesn't start for 6 weeks. But there's this level of expectation sometimes around sport in God's own county that is very hard to live up to at times.
Yeah, I think social media plays a part as well. Maybe I don't want to be that person who says 20 years ago it used to be like this, but I remember being a kid and watching football, and essentially what you would do is you get in the car after a match, you might listen to the results come in on the radio, and then by the time you got home, you were watching Noel's House Party or Gladiators or something, and if you were sort of of an age, you could go to the pub with your mates or have a night out, go for a curry or something. Whereas now, there's this instant sort of, you get on your phone, whether you're in the car, whether you're on the bus, whether you're walking back home or whatever you're doing. Even if you're sat with your mates in the pub, you're on the phone, you're having a conversation, you're complaining, and it just never stops. There's just this, football phoning used to be a pretty unique hour for people to come in and have a rant, get it off your chest, and then move on with your life. Whereas there's a 24-hour phoning available now, and it's called Twitter. So I think that kind of has helped create this this situation, and not just with football, but like you said, with the cricket as well, and I'm sure with other sports.
Well, Rob, well, thank you for your time, and we'll let you get back to it. And good luck to the Seahawks in the draft and in the future, and obviously to continued success for the two Sheffield clubs.
No, thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me on, and I'll second that. You know, it's nice to see both clubs doing well for a change.
No, it isn't. It's nice to see one of them.
Well, that was the brilliant Rob Staton there, Dutton, talking all things Seahawks, and then a little bit of a quote-unquote God's own country sport. As
I say, I never, ever, ever want to hear Liverpool, and to a lesser extent Everton fans, complain about how tough it is. You can all kiss my ass, quite frankly.
It's one of those situations where, like, you know, when you hear this from, like, oh, you know, what a disaster. We only, you know, the Patriots were only 11-5 and they got beaten in the AFC Championship game. How about you F off? How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? Because my team stunk for a quarter century, so you can kiss it if you think I'm going to feel sorry for you. Oh no. What are the Seahawks? As Rob just mentioned there, you know, I'm crying. Do you know what I mean? They're only going to have Cam Chancellor for another year with Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman. Yeah, no sympathy whatsoever.
I mean, I suppose when you are perfectly healthy, the first time you are sick, you want to make the most of your moment. You know, if you're perfectly healthy and then you get, you know, an ingrown toenail, you're going to want to tell everyone about it. It's not the same as someone who's perpetually ill complaining about how ill they are every single day. But ultimately, Liverpool fans can talk to Liverpool fans about how angry and frustrated you are to be entering, you know, closing in on a 30th year without a league title. Yeah, don't come to me. I'm really not interested. I'm not your audience.
No, I think that's fine. I think that's where everyone needs to say, if you want to complain about your team and your team is actually secretly good, complain to people who care, and that's people within your world. Like, as you said, everyone can moan about the Browns, but like no one's going to moan about how bad the Pittsburgh Steelers have got it. It's not. No. I'm not interested.
It's you know, it's if you've got two fully functional legs, don't be running through a ward full of people with, you know, casts on.
Exactly.
They're not interested. They're not interested.
I know you have got two functional legs right now. So don't that be as we said, free agency 2 weeks in. It's a weekend, isn't it? Sorry, not 2 weeks. Just into the second week, and we wanted to look at some early winners and losers to get some kind of feel on who do we think's got better and who do we think's got worse. So I've got the winners because I'm, you know, the glass half full guy, and well, you've got the losers because, you know, you're you. So if we start, you know, we've mentioned them already. We talk about them all the time. You know, I know that the Gridiron guys love to rip on them, but you know, it's tough to rip on the New England Patriots when you realise that they're good. And I know I was listening to around the NFL today, and I know from last night, and I know that Greg Rosenthal was trying to give us some absolute BS that all he'd done is kind of stayed pat, maybe got a little worse. I'm not falling for that, just in case anyone was wondering. Stephon Gilmore re-signed Dante Hightower, get Brandon Cooks, get Dwayne Allen, and have Jimmy Garoppolo like waving in front of the Cleveland Browns face like, we've got him, how much are you going to give us? New England Patriots got better and they won the Super Bowl this year.
The Bleeding Green Nation boys, we've mentioned them before, their theory is that the only thing Belichick and Brady have got left to do is 19-0. Seriously, what else? 5 Super Bowls as a head coach and as quarterback, no one's done that. You've got that. They've done, you know, an unbeaten regular season, but obviously that didn't matter because they lost the Super Bowl. Let's push for 19-0, and then the two of them can piss off. How about that?
Yeah, it's almost that interesting concept, and it's quite clever. Is that, like, I'm sure, you know, Jets fans, Dolphins fans, Bills fans, especially Colts fans, I guess, would be like, I don't want them to win anymore. But secretly, you actually do want them to win more because the more they win, the sooner they leave.
Yeah. They'll get bored eventually and just decide, oh, okay, we've had it now.
I mean, you can't eat, kale and water for the rest of your life, I would guess.
Or at all.
Or at all. Well, I have done it once, as a meal, but I wouldn't do it twice. That'd be weird.
Metro.
Thank you. Another winner, not necessarily a team, although I guess it is a team, is Tampa Bay Bucks, but mostly it's Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston spent a lot of time throwing into what felt like quadruple coverage to Mike Evans.
But still doing it.
But still doing it. Pretty much because, I guess with the exception of Cameron Brate, there wasn't really anyone else to throw to. Vincent Jackson over the hill and far away. They've signed Deshaun Jackson from the Washington semi-professional Dumpster Fire.
Semi?
I use Dumpster Fire. I mean, what do you want from me?
I want the word semi and professional removed from the title.
You want amateur Dumpster Fire. He got 1,000 yards last year, and he will be that deep threat. And because that deep threat's there, it frees up Mike Evans. Don't say it, Dutton. We do this. This is the 4th or 5th year we've done this. Will this be the 4th or 5th year we go? You know what? Tampa Bay might be good.
NFL 10's current ADP, Jameis Winston, is the 12th quarterback being selected. I wouldn't. Given how late in the round he'll be going, he could be fantasy money this year. Deshaun Jackson, as we know, he's not going to be an 1,800-yard, 20 touchdown guy. He'll get his 1,000, he'll get his 6. But it's, as you say, it's the attention he draws and makes Mike Evans' life a bit easier. It opens up things for Cameron Brate. It makes the run game go. And ultimately, he can just change just by being there, assuming he stays fit, because, let's be honest, he's a bit of a one-trick pony. If he loses the speed, what's he going to do? Is he going to become the possession slot receiver? No, I really don't think so. But if he stays fit and healthy, he could make Mike Evans the wide receiver one.
I think that's it. It's not necessarily all about, this is great for Deshaun Jackson. I think it's as you said, what Deshaun Jackson brings to the rest of the teams, because he frees up space. That's one thing that I'm sure Washington are going to miss, is that space that they did have that isn't there anymore, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? And that's something they'll need to worry about, I guess.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure we'll come on to them when we talk about losers. The other winner, Dalton, is a strange one. Everyone's favourite joke for a large period of time, which is Mr. Doug Marrone. Every year we say, Jacksonville are better this year, and they showed signs under Marrone that they might get better. They've added AJ Bouye, which is a great name, by the way. A great signing, Calais Campbell, veteran and Barry Church, adding to the rest of the defence they've already got. Now they really are now more than what we thought last year when they were going to be offence heavy, no defence. Now maybe defence heavy, no offence. And when you're that way round, you only need Blake Bortles to be average or just below league average rather than good. So I feel that someone's actually dropped a decent team on Doug Marrone's lap by almost complete accident, and he's going to be the beneficiary of that.
I believe I said at the end of the season I wouldn't be talking about this team. I will relax that rule, but I'm not ready to relax it in March.
That's fine. I'll just say that they like to make big splashes, and they have done. And to be fair, at least they're attempting to win. I can't argue with that. Let's hope they actually do for the 4 people who care about Jacksonville.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to put in a lot of hard work, hard yards, and time of preparation to win the preseason year after year, and they should be celebrated for that. But unfortunately, as I say, no, I'm done with them. I've used up all of my human, milk of human goodness on this shower of crap, and I'm not prepared to waste my dwindling existence in March talking about them.
So on that positive note, Dutton, give me some losers from free agency so far.
Well, you said you listened to Around the NFL, and it's a line that I'm going to share with friend Westling. The Chicago Bears look even worse than they did last year, and by God, they were pretty bad last year. Mike Glennon is very ordinary. I mean, a lot of people are giving Deshaun Watson grief because of the combine. Apparently he only threw the ball 49 miles an hour. Well, Mike Glennon's supposed to have a big arm, and he didn't clock 50 miles an hour at the combine or his pro day either. I mean, looking like a startled giraffe doesn't help him. But then they're just very, very ordinary pieces. Excuse me. They've got some decent pieces on defense because they have Leonard Floyd. They've got one of the better young running backs in the league, in Jordan Howard, who couldn't catch a cold, unfortunately. But the quarterback's gash, the wide receivers are very, very, very ordinary. If we're not being too generous, and I just think that it must be depressing having John Fox as your head coach. You're crap, and then John Fox is your head coach as well. It's where's me pillow? I'm going to put this over my head or something.
The question I have is, does Ryan Pace think that he'll survive when he fires John Fox? Because I don't think he will, and you especially don't do that by signing Glennon to a $19 million guaranteed when you had Brian Hoyer in the room, basically, a smaller version of Mike Glennon. You then swap Alshon Jeffrey, who you could have got for 1 year, $14 million, with Kendall Wright. Do you know, okay, your defense is a bit better, but you've got no one who can throw it, and you've got no one who can catch it. This is an issue, and the Bears don't look like they're trying to win. But unlike certain teams like the Cleveland Browns, who kind of declared we're not trying to win, the Bears are pretending that they are trying to win when they're blatantly not.
Yeah, as Westling said, don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining.
Exactly.
This is a team. This is a team that can't come out and say we're going to compete. No, you're not. You really are not.
No, you're far from it. Who's next, Dutton?
Same division, and it's the Green Bay Packers and their fans who actually get excited for free agency because they think things are going to happen. Yeah, things have happened. Their roster has been gutted. They've lost some decent pieces of their offensive line. They've lost their key running back of the last 4 years. I'm not going to say he was hardly career highs in rush per attempts last year, but he only played 4 games. He looked like a truck. He ran like a truck, and he caught like a truck. Unfortunately, so again, it looks like they're going to say, no, we've got a plan, and the plan is over to you, Aaron, because Martellus Bennett coming in, wonderful. He averages 3 receptions a game in his career. He's a low end tight end 1, middle of the road tight end 2 at best. He's never had more than, I think, about 15% of targets. He's not going to come in and galvanise this offense. You're going to rely exclusively on Rodgers to Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams. Randall Cobb has disappeared off the face of the earth. You've not added, apart from Bennett, and the team just seems to be treading water.
But it's that strange concept, people are like, oh well, Ted Thompson, he's sorted it out in the draft before. Well, he has a little bit, but it does help that you've got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. So he could have sorted out in the draft before, but if you had Mike Glennon as quarterback, they'd win 3 games a year. I understand the concept of what you're trying to do, but every now and again you've got to keep a player or two. You lose Micah Hyde, you lose TJ Lang, Eddie Lacy, Dante Jones, Julius Peppers. These were all starters last year. You're going to replace them all with draft players from the draft? That's highly unlikely. Now, you may get some drafters, and they are good at drafting players, obviously. But to replace, 5, that's a lot. I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
It just seems like, again, they're going to have to draft for need, and that's always the worst position to be in. You mentioned Dayton Jones, though. He, I believe, was their first-round pick in 2013. I think we should just have a quick look at that first round, just to remember. When anyone ever tells you it's a weak draft class, just point them to this first round, okay?
Go for it, Dalton.
So here we go. Eric Fisher.
Oh, yeah, he's scared of JJ Watt.
Yeah. Luke Jokel.
We just laughed at Rob for signing him for the Seahawks.
Yeah. Deion Jordan.
Does he still play in the NFL?
Don't think so. He's also the one that the Dolphins mocked the Raiders for how little it took them to move up to get him. Calm as a bitch. Lane Johnson loves a PED.
Loves a PED.
Right. Ziggy Ansah.
Okay, someone who maybe plays.
So we're to the 5th pick, and that's the first one of these players who's made a Pro Bowl.
Yep.
Barkevius Mingo.
Yeah, he's garbage. By the way, Dutton, you're going to struggle to get to the next one, but keep going.
Jonathan Cooper.
Yeah, he was
Tavon
supposed to be
Austin.
Amazing. That never worked. Tavon Austin.
Austin. D. Milliner.
You didn't buy a share for Tavon Austin this year, Dutton.
Yeah. D. Milner. Chance Warmack.
Okay.
DJ Fluker. DJ Hayden. Sheldon Richardson.
Okay, hello.
Starlet
We found player. We found an actual player, Sheldon Richardson. However, is now a head case. Sorry, carry on.
Kenny Vaccaro.
You said Starlet. You had Starlet Tulele, right?
Starlet Tulele.
He's good. Okay, carry on.
Kenny Vaccaro. EJ Manuel. Jarvis Jones. Eric Reed. Justin Pugh. Kyle Long.
Decent.
Tyler Eifert.
Hello.
Desmond Trufant.
A footballer, we found some. They do exist.
Sharif Floyd. Bjorn Werner.
Yeah.
Xavier Rhodes.
Good.
Dayton Jones.
Okay.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Sylvester Williams. Cordero Patterson.
Oh my God.
Alec Ogletree. Travis Frederick. And Matt Elam.
That is quite possibly the worst draft of all time. Washington didn't have a pick. Their first pick was 51, and we picked David Amerson just to prove that it wasn't just the other 31 teams who couldn't draft that year.
Terrible.
Wow. Yeah, that stinks, Don. That stinks. Thanks for that. Have you got any other losers from free agency?
The Vikings. You lose Adrian Peterson, replace him with Latavius Murray. It's a bit like taking steak off the menu and eating kale, really.
I look as well, Dutton, as they tried to give Alshon Jeffrey a lot of money and he turned it down for a 1-year deal.
Yeah, because there's no point in being.
They've also not fixed their offensive line, which stank last year.
Yeah, I think Alshon Jeffrey realised he was going to have to run an awful long way down the field to constantly have to turn around, look, see it had been caught 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, go back, repeat, continue.
Yeah, I think that is probably an issue for him, that his skill set and Sam Bradford's skill set don't quite mesh.
Their offensive line's terrible. It's not going to punch holes for Latavius Murray, who can't do it by himself. He needs an offensive line. The Raiders' offensive line was brilliant last year, and he couldn't do anything for them. I really don't think he's going to be able to do anything for these. And it's just another team who you thought... I'm not saying they had a Super Bowl window, but they certainly had a window that maybe they could become something of a power in the NFC, whereas now they just look a bit also ranny again.
Yeah, and we seem to have picked 3 losers from the same division, the NFC North. Dutton, I put it off last week. I guess I can't put it off this week. Who's your last loser?
Washington, its fans and its employees.
Or certain parts of his employees. I'm sure that Bruce Allen isn't a loser.
The way that this schism has been created and reported on and acted upon is one of the more reprehensibly disgusting things I've ever heard of. I mean, I don't get me wrong, have you seen a picture of Scott McLuhan from 3 years ago? Have you seen a picture of him now? He got rosy red cheeks, boy, and there's only one way he really got them. But come out and if you know, as Coach Edwards once said, put your name on it. If you want to get rid of him because you think he's a drunk, come out and say this man is a drunk. We don't want him in our team. Don't come up with this. Don't feed stories to your mouthpiece on your own radio station, and then see him flailing helplessly like a man in the waters after the Titanic has slid to the bottom, grasping for a lifebelt, claiming, no one's ever fed me anything. Bollocks, Chris, bollocks.
It doesn't help that he's, best mates with the owner. I think the issue is as well, Dalton, is that, they get rid of him, but my understanding is they keep the board that they were using for free agency, so they were the players he would have picked. Everybody gets jealous at work, right? Everybody hates it that there's a guy who gets all the credit and you don't think he should get all the credit. You knew that Scott McLuhan drank. That hasn't necessarily changed. It sounds like he started to do things that they thought he shouldn't do, like shout at players, like be the general manager, when he never actually was the general manager. He was basically, an overgrown scout player personnel guy. Yeah,
he was just playing one on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. The major issue really is, as we stand, we can talk about that dysfunction, and it happens all the time. I'm more concerned that they've lost 2 1,000-yard receivers. Now have to rely on Terrell Pryor. There must be a reason why he's only got $8 million. And Josh Doxson, who didn't get on the field last year. Jordan Reed, who's constantly injured. They lost Chris Baker, who was a leader in the locker room and on the defensive line, which was garbage apart from Chris Baker. They brought in, at best mid-carders, but most likely jobbers to do that job in terms of stopping the run. They haven't really fixed that. And now I'm back to the situation of Bruce Allen's picking players again.
And don't forget,
which got me into which that and the Vinny Serrato got me into this effing mess in the first place.
And don't forget that basically the biggest crime that has been committed, other than the slander to Scott McLuhan, is that you've pissed off the quarterback.
Well, yeah, but the ironic thing about that, Dalton, is I think secretly it's one of the reasons that Scott McLuhan hasn't got a job. Is that I think. And I've got no real, apart from what I've read and heard, I think he's the reason that we didn't sign him. Because he wasn't convinced. Which I understand. But my question is, on all this type of situation, is get rid of him then, if you want.
Yeah.
And you've got someone better. But just so you know, you haven't. So
it's the Andrew Brandt
that Bruce Allen one. That noise of we think Colt McCoy can do a job. That's talent evaluator, not Bruce Allen, in my opinion. But there we go.
I mean, ultimately, it comes down to I can't remember, is it Greg Cassell's or Andrew Brandt, who whenever you say let's get rid of them, your next question is, and then what? And then what doesn't have an answer, you don't get rid of them. I mean, I say. Ultimately, it just sounds like you say that the Patriots are basically dangling Jimmy G in front of people, saying, "Oh, can't have him. Oh, can't have him. No, he's ours, but we'll keep him here so you can see him." You may thought that maybe that's what you would imply some kind of Machiavellian thinking behind the scenes of Washington, that would be what they'd do with Kirk Cousins. Basically, keep saying to San Francisco, "No, you can't have him. He's our guy. You don't want him. No, he's not for sale at any price." But if we were to name a price, unfortunately, I don't think that level of backdoor, politicking is up the intellectual street of Bruce Allen.
But the problem you got is, Dalton, that's a conversation between Bruce Allen and John Lynch. That's your fatal flaw, that those two are trying to do a deal, and San Francisco paid like £8 billion for fullbacks this off season. So I'm not sure either team can do a deal unless they both ran into each other.
I mean, it's one of those. I mean, we NFC East fans, which we are, we hate the Giants because they look into Super Bowl runs. We hate the Cowboys because they're arrogant, they're brash, and annoyingly, they've got 5 Super Bowls. I'm sure Washington fans hate the Eagles because we're crap, and ultimately we're the poor cousins of the NFC East. We've never done anything. But Washington just gone out of their way, it seems, to just become the moral laughing stock of not only that division but the entire NFL.
When you're taking headlines away from what things are happening in San Francisco with the way they're being ran, how things are being run in Cleveland, you know you've got issues done. And that thing's plain and simple. And it's one of them things which we say all the time, you can't pick your family. And unfortunately, this is family, and I just have to deal with the consequences as such.
Yeah, it's the type of family that makes you want to probably, change your name, not answer your phone.
Yeah. I look forward to 4-12. Let's just say, I look forward to 4-12. Then not having a quarterback
and a new coach.
Yeah.
Wonder which shiny retread that'll be.
Can't wait, Dutton. Can't wait. Well, Dutton, on that depressing note, we've been prattling on for far too long, so let's go, and we'll speak to everyone next week.
We will.
See you later, guys.